Okay, so yesterday we talked about certain fundamental aspects, okay, like CIA triad, elements of information security, and similar stuff like that. Okay, so today what we are going to start with is let's talk about a little bit about threats. Okay, students are still joining. Let's do one thing, let's wait for 2 to 3 more minutes for them to join. Okay, so let's start. So today we are going to talk a little bit about security threats. Okay, security threats. We do have some chat messages.
Sir, we can't hear you. You're not audible.
You cannot hear me? Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, but your voice is very low.
Okay. Just give me a quick second. Let me see some settings here. Right. So can you hear me loud and clear now? Is it good?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Not loud, but it's fine, sir. It's okay.
It's fine. Okay. We can continue, right? We can continue with this much. Okay, so talking about the security threats. So I was just about to start with security threats. So what do you understand by security threats? Hmm? What is a security threat in your level of understanding?
So the vulnerabilities part, which we discussed yesterday.
Mhm. The vulnerability part. Okay, so that is just a small part. Okay, so it is like what kind of threats can be imposed upon the security. So in security threats, the subheads are like, the first one is malware. Okay, so malware acts as a security threat. We are going to talk about malware in deep after a while, but for now, what is malware? What do you understand by malware, or how you are going to define malware? Anyone would like to define malware? You guys must have heard about malware.
So it is code for unauthorized access.
Code for unauthorized access. Okay. Anyone else is going to try? Okay, so malware essentially is nothing but malicious piece of software. Okay, it is made up of two terms, mal plus ware. That simply means malicious software. Okay, that is malware. So basically, what is a software? Software is just nothing but a piece of code. Okay, written in some kind of a language. It can be written in any language. So when you write a piece of code for good purpose, okay, for utility, that is a software. But when you write a piece of code with malicious purpose, a malicious intention, you can say, that becomes a malware. That is considered as a malware. Okay. Then comes your unauthorized access that we have already covered yesterday. Okay. Accessing somebody else's system without permission. Okay. That is unauthorized access. Then we have got social engineering as a security threat. Hmm. Social engineering. So, do you guys understand social engineering? What is social engineering?
Yes, sir.
Hmm. Okay, so would you like to elaborate on it? What do you understand by social engineering?
So social engineering is basically tactics employed by hackers or crackers in order to manipulate human behavior and do a kind of a CTA on websites.
Okay, on the website or some kind of a technique deployed by attacker against the human. So actually, it is like you can say it is the psychological manipulation of another human being. Okay, I try to manipulate another person psychologically. I try to become friend of him. I try to gain trust of another person, and then at a later point of time, I try to exploit that trust that I have built upon. Okay, so that is essentially social engineering. We are going to talk about it as well in detail after a while. Any other threat that you can think of? Okay, so another example for security threat is your system failures. Failures can be anywhere. Okay, so a resource may fail, a system may fail, a networking device may fail. That can lead to a security implication. That is also a threat. Okay, there are chances that maybe there is some kind of an IDS, IPS installed. Okay, some kind of a firewall installed in the infrastructure, and any of the defensive mechanism fails right away. Okay, so it is going to impose some kind of a security threat. Okay, now comes your mitigating steps, or you can say how you can mitigate such kind of security threats. Hmm. Mitigating threats. So can you guys can think of something to mitigate such kind of threats? Hmm. Think of something. It is easy peasy stuff.
Sir, social engineering is a cause of spreading a lot of malwares. So I guess a very fundamental mitigation step is awareness about these things.
Okay, very fundamental mitigation is
Firewall.
firewall. Okay, right. Yeah, firewall is one of them. Anything else you guys can think of? Just think of something.
Sir, and on corporate levels, DMZ maybe.
You right, DMZ can be an option. Okay. Okay, let me help you out. The first category is physical controls. PHYSIC. Physical controls. Can you guys think of certain steps that a corporate can take in terms of mitigating such kind of security threats using some kind of physical controls? Huh?
Port security.
What? Port security.
Port. Yes, sir.
Okay. Port security. No, I don't think that it is going to fall under the physical control. There's a different category for it. When you say port security, I believe you are talking about the switch port security or router port security, right? That's what you are referring to.
Yes.
Sir, physical controls are mainly required on the data link layers. So I think port filing, port security might be a good idea.
Okay, think of it in physical terms like, let me tell you, alarms, okay, doors, locks, okay. We are talking physically in these terms, okay. You guys are thinking in terms of technical devices you can implement, okay. That is also right. I'm not saying that is wrong, but that does not falls under the physical control category,
Keeping a central mainframe.
right? It can be an option. You can say surveillance, whatever kind of surveillance mechanism you guys need, you want to implement in your corporate, that is fine. Like cameras, hmm, that is an option. And authentication based gates, that is an option. Security guards, hmm, security guards, so on and so forth. So I believe this much example would be enough for you guys to elaborate and think in terms of physical controls. When I say physical controls, I'm referring to such kind of category. Then comes your technical control. Okay, technical controls. So here you can talk about port security, or else you guys can think of something else now.
System hardening.
System hardening. Okay. What else? Anything else? Technical.
Sir, there is a message in chat box from Brijesh Reddy.
Okay, let me see. Right. The generic one, firewall, keeping the software up to date, keeping a central in-house mainframe sensors using VM and honeypots. Right. Yeah. Good point. We can add it here. Hmm? VMs, honeypots. Okay. What else? We can talk about ACLs here. ACLs.
So maybe using an efficient anomaly based IDS.
Yeah, so you do not need to specifically talk about anomaly based IDS. Okay, an IDS in itself is sufficient in technical control. That depends upon the uh, corporate to corporate, what kind of IDS do they want to implement. But definitely IDS is going to fall under the technical control. And if I say IDS, IBS is also going to fall here. Firewalls are also going to fall here. Hmm? And I also said ACLs. So I believe you guys are aware of ACL. What is an ACL? That is your access control lists. Mhm. Acts just like your firewalls, restricting and allowing specific type of traffic from originating or destined to specific IP addresses. Mhm. Right?
Database encryption.
Yeah, good one. Encryption in general is good enough. Okay, and it can be used anywhere. It is not mandatory that we are going to encrypt the database. So we can use encryption anywhere. It's a good technical control option. Okay. So these are certain examples of technical controls that can be implemented. Then comes your administrative controls. Hmm. So there can be certain administrative controls that can be applied to a corporate, inside a corporate. So can you guys think of any kind of administrative controls, or what kind of administrative controls I'm talking about here?
So using a proxy server inside
Proxy
a corporate.
proxy server is not an administrative control. Okay.
So the administrative controls, like if you're on a server, then giving users certain permissions and certain users not.
Mhm. Right. That is a good one. Okay. Like setting up permissions. Okay. Like we can have set rules of policies and permissions which are going to govern the rights and permissions of other users. Hmm? We can talk about policies here. We can implement policies here, and we can talk about procedures here that are going to be laid down in a corporate environment.
Sir, actually, that is why I said using a proxy server, because if, for example, an employee tries to access a restricted site,
Mhm.
a restricted or a malicious site,
Yeah,
a proxy server can avoid, getting in the corporate under threat from that by redirecting that request. So that's why I said.
okay. So proxy server in itself does not signify that thing. Okay. When I am going to build a policy for it, that is going to be in administrative control. Merely deploying a proxy server, that is going to be a technical control. Okay. If I'm just merely talking about deploying something, okay, I'm not talking about the guidelines that are associated to it. That is not going to be administrative. So yeah, policy procedures. What else? Some kind of a security awareness training. Hmm, that is a good example. Security awareness training. Planning. Hmm, that is administrative control, that what we are going to do if this happens or that happens. These are certain examples of administrative controls.
So some corporations also have a separate department for like an emergency task force. It basically responses to if there is a security threat or a hardware failure, just
Yeah,
like that.
right. That is true. Okay, so actually, uh, what you are talking about specifically is your risk management, okay, or response to the risk. What in case of disaster or in case of external threat, what is going to happen once something has already occurred. Okay, so it's a dedicated, you can say, domain where people are hired and specifically trained to mitigate, analyze, and quantify risks. Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead. So now comes your. Okay, just give me a second. Let me mark you guys present. So I believe everyone is present now. Someone is still missing. Okay, so now let's talk about hackers. Huh? Who is a hacker? A person who is going to perform hacking is going to be considered as a hacker, right? Pretty easy peasy stuff. Okay. Now, when I say different types of hackers or classification of hacker, or classes of hacker, you guys must have heard about certain types of hackers. Hmm?
Yes, sir. 4 or 5 colors of them.
Okay, four or five. So, can you name them?
So white hat, black hat, red hat, blue hat, gray hat.
Gray hat.
Okay, black hat hackers, black hat, white hat, and gray hat. Okay.
So blue.
Yeah, blue and red are something more relatively new terms. Okay, these does not fall under the traditional categories that we have been talking about for so long. Okay, initially we did not used to have any person like blue hat or red hat. Okay, now what they are doing I believe they are just uh, taking these colors and starting to append this name hat hacker to it, just creating these categories for no purpose. So we are not going to talk about red, blue, purple, all that stuff. Okay. So first of all, let's talk about the black hat hacker. Hmm? Who is a black hat hacker?
Evil people.
Unethical hacker.
Without permission, he gets into the system.
Illegal actions.
Unethical, illegal, without permission.
Person who acts for the benefit of his own.
Okay. Anything else? Hmm? So black hat hackers are essentially those types of hackers who basically hack with malicious intentions. Okay, without the permission. People who are going to hack without the permission, they are going to be considered as black hat hackers. and they generally hack to cause damage to another person, okay, to their target system. Target can be a corporate, it can be an individual, it can be anything. But the end line is that black hat guys are those guys who act maliciously with malicious intentions, and they act unethically. Okay. They perform illegal stuff. Those are your black hat hackers. Then comes your white hat hackers. Okay. So what are white hat hackers?
So the penetration testers, for example.
The pen testers, and what else?
Ethical, legal, with permission.
Ethical, legal, with permission. Okay.
For benefit of a company.
For the what company?
Benefit of a company.
Benefit of the
Public
company.
service.
Okay. Right. So you guys are absolutely right. So white hat hackers are actually those hackers who perform with, first of all, good intention. Okay. They do not hack into a system for a malicious reason or for a malicious purpose or to cause damage. That is not their purpose. Okay. Another thing is that they basically try to hack to provide security, not to cause damage to the system. Instead, to safeguard, to provide safeguard to a system against the bad guys. And who are the bad guys here? The black hat ones. Okay, those are the bad guys here. Yeah, definitely they work under the legal boundaries. Okay, under the responsible disclosure stuff. So those are known as white hat hackers. So actually, when you go into the corporate environment, there is no such thing as hacker. Okay, you are not going to find vacancies for white hat hackers. Okay, so the professional term that is used to refer to these white hat people is pen testers or penetration testers. Okay, penetration testers, you can say nowadays bug bounty is on hype. You can say bug hunters. They are also considered as white hat hackers, right? You guys must have heard about bug bounty. Hmm? Would have tried doing bug bounty as well. Hmm? Anyone found any bug, any hall of fame?
Brajesh Reddy.
Hmm? Yeah, Vivek, you were saying something, I believe.
Yes, sir. There is Brajesh Reddy from our class. He once it was a college competition,
Hmm.
and he found some bugs in our university website.
In your own university website, right? Okay. Right. So it's a good field. It's a good domain that you guys can look into. Okay. So then comes your gray hat hackers. Okay. So who are gray hat hackers then?
Someone who uses like illegal softwares maybe, but do not have any malicious intent to corrupt data or something. Like if someone want to catch a criminal, he may go into some illegal way to find out his traces or something, but he has no malicious intents.
Okay. It's like you are talking.
Someone who uses the hacking skill sometimes for his own benefit and sometimes to help the government or something.
So going in a illegal way, but for the good cause.
Okay. So if I need to define gray hat hackers, so gray hat hacker are those type of hackers who actually go through some kind of, you can say, mood swings. Huh? Okay. So it depends upon time to time. Okay. It depends upon their mood while they are hacking. So they act offensively as well as defensively. Okay. They can act in a way that is illegal, or they can act in a way that is legal. Okay, so that does not matter. What matters is their state of mind with which they are hacking, the mood while they were hacking. It's like sometime that person can find a vulnerability, and instead of reporting that vulnerability to the concerned authority, he tries to sell that vulnerability on the dark web and tries to make money out of it. Okay, and the other day he found some vulnerability on some different website. He tries to responsibly disclose that vulnerability and tries to make uh, be a good citizen. Okay, tries to increase the security of the website. Okay, so those kind of people are considered as gray hat hackers. Okay, so now there are further types of hackers here as well. Like you would have heard about script kiddies, huh? Script kiddies, hacktivists, hmm? Hacktivists. You guys would have heard about hacktivists, cyber terrorists. What else? There is something known as suicide hackers as well. And then comes your state sponsored hacker. Hmm. So, who is a script kiddie?
Rookie hacker maybe.
Someone who just uses a software without knowing the functionality happening behind it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so script kiddies are those types of hackers who are like just starting into this domain, okay, who do not know much about hacking. They just know how to use some basic tools, okay. They do not know what is networking, how does network works, okay, what is public IP, what is private IP. They do not know the technical nitty-gritties. They do not know how to code. They do not have the code reading aptitude even, okay. All they understand is just use this application, just click on this application, click on next, 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 and it is going to give you the password, Facebook profile password of your friend, okay. So what happens is a lot of time these script kiddies, while they are trying to hack into another person's system, they end up getting hacked by the professional hacker, okay. So because the tools that these people use, these script kiddies use, are actually built by some professional hackers, okay. And many times it happens is if you are trying to run a script which you do not understand how it is running. So many times what happens is the script would be doing some kind of a malicious activity on your own machine, on the machine that you are running, okay. That is the case. Now these are your script kiddies. Then comes your hacktivists. Okay, so who are hacktivists?
So they basically work for a social cause, and they do that by um, trying to like maybe for example, if a bank is has illegally acquired various loans and all, they might try to hack the bank website and wipe off all of them. So
Okay, anyone else would like to try? So not exactly the social cause, okay. But although it can be a reason behind the hacktivists, okay. But most of the time, hacktivists can be an individual, or they can be a group of people. It can be a group of people or an individual who are basically going to hack for some kind of a political agenda or political belief, okay. They generally, what they do is they try to deface some website and similar stuff like that. There was a news I believe a week ago, hmm, where some kind of an Indian hacker hacked into the Pakistani news channel. Did you heard about that? Read that?
Yes, sir.
Hmm. So that's an example of hacktivist. Okay. Another one is a very renowned example is Anonymous. Okay. Have you guys heard about Anonymous Group? So essentially, it's a hacktivist group. Okay, it's an example, but once you try to Google about Anonymous, you will see that a lot of suggestions are provided to you, like LulzSec, Lizard Squad, Red Hack. Okay, so you guys can try exploring about these groups, why these groups are famous, what kind of activity did they actually do. One, okay, Black Hat, that is okay. One which is very famous one is the shadow brokers. Huh? Heard about the shadow brokers? Have you guys ever heard about the shadow brokers?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Nope. Okay. So actually, this was the group who hacked into the NSA, National Security Agency. Okay, and they leaked a lot of proprietary and secret tools that were used by the agency internally. Okay, and one among them was the Ghidra. It's a reverse engineering tool. It was developed by National Security Agency NSA. Initially, it was not open source, not free. Okay, but after the attack, it was released openly. A lot of zero-day vulnerabilities were released by the shadow broker group. Hmm. Those zero-day vulnerabilities were kept secret by the national security agencies. So when I say zero-day vulnerability, what do you guys understand by zero-day vulnerability? Hmm?
Sir, on the same day that a software is built, a vulnerability
So
is exposed by or found by a hacker.
unpatched vulnerability.
Okay, so one guy said that on the same day the software is released, if a vulnerability is found, that is 0 day. Okay, that can be a case, but technically that is not absolutely right. So 0 day vulnerability can be found even after 2 to 3 years of releasing a software. Okay, so time limit is not an issue with that regard. But the whole point in case of 0 day vulnerability is, if let's say there is a Windows operating system, okay, it's a Windows 7 operating system. It is out there in the market for 5 years, okay, or 6 years, you can say. And there is a vulnerability in the Windows operating system which no one is aware of, okay, which the developer is not aware of. Okay, that is going to be 0 day, that the owner or the corporate or the developer are not aware of. They have 0 days available to defend against the attack. Okay, they are not even aware of some kind of a vulnerability existing in their piece of software. That is 0 day. Okay, it's like there's a vulnerability but nobody knows about it. That is a 0 day. Only certain high profile people know about it. Okay, so NSA actually had some 0 day exploits with respect to Windows 7 and 8, and the name of those exploits are like Eternal Blue. Maybe you guys heard about it. Eternal Blue. Eternal Blue was the vulnerability which was actually leaked by the shadow broker hackers. Okay, the shadow broker group of hackers, and it was the vulnerability in the SMB version 1. Okay, which was kept secret by NSA. Even the Microsoft was unaware of that thing. So that is an example of 0 day. Okay.
Sir,
Yeah.
what is the difference between a vulnerability and 0 day vulnerability? Because both are vulnerabilities there in the software, and the developer doesn't know about it until it is found by someone.
Yeah.
So, what's the difference?
The difference is if there's a vulnerability, it may be known, it may not be known. It's like, let's say, just give me a second. I'm receiving a call from office. Yeah. So you were asking that what is the difference between 0 day and a normal vulnerability? So 0 day is like you do not know. Microsoft does not know. You are using Windows 10 operating system. Okay, and once a vulnerability is released, let's say, so what Microsoft is going to do is it is going to start working towards the patch of that vulnerability within a day or two, or within a week, or within a month. They are going to try to patch that vulnerability. Okay, that is how normally normal vulnerabilities are considered or categorized. But if I say 0 day, okay, so it's like you are using Windows 10, and I know that there is a vulnerability. I can access your system remotely. Okay, and I can access anybody else's Windows 10 system, but the Microsoft itself does not know about it. You does not know about it. The society at large does not know about it. That is 0 day. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. SUCIDE, suicide hackers. Who are suicide hackers? Hmm?
Who do hacking for getting? They don't know that they're doing some stuff, but they usually get caught by doing that hack.
Okay, so somewhat right. Anyone else is going to try?
So those who hack for the sake of fun, even though they know that it is illegal.
Okay. So essentially, suicide hackers are those types of hackers who do hacking, who perform the act of hacking, and they do not care about themselves. Okay, they do not care about any kind of imprisonment or sanction that can be imposed upon them. Okay, those are suicide hackers. Like a normal hacker is going to try to hide his own ID. Okay, the attacker is going to try to hide himself because he knows if he is going to get caught, there is going to be certain amount of fine that is going to be imposed, or some kind of a imprisonment, some kind of a sanction that can be imposed. That's how normally hacker works. But suicide hackers do not care about that stuff. Okay, so it's like I'm doing a hacking, but I'm not trying to hide my identity. That is suicide hackers.
Sir, the definition of suicide hackers and the script kiddies, does it overlap somehow, somewhere?
So you can say that they overlap in that term, but see, suicide hackers are those hackers who intentionally does not care about their own security. But script kiddies are those people who may unintentionally expose themselves who may unintentionally expose their identities against the attack that they have performed. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So then comes your cyber terrorists. So who are cyber terrorists? How are you going to define cyber terrorist?
Who hack for a nation to damage other nations, cyber stuff.
Nation attacking nation.
Maybe.
That is absolutely
Hackers whose intention is something related to national integrity, data related to national security or something.
all right. So you understand what are the terrorists are like? What does it mean to be a terrorist? Okay. So they are
So,
like.
yeah, sir, I'd like to add a point. There was a data breach of Turkish citizens, right?
Mhm.
6 crore people data has been leaked, including some biometric information. That
Mhm.
was a terrorist attack, right? We can consider it, right?
Okay. So we cannot say that exactly as terrorist attack. Okay. We can say we can categorize it under any other kind of hacktivist or state sponsored hacker. Okay. I'll emphasize on the difference as well just in a while. So terrorists are generally are those people who first of all are going to be motivated by some kind of a religious belief, religious agenda, or some kind of a political agenda. Okay. Second of all, they are going to try to attack the government infrastructures. Okay. Another thing is that they are going to try to cause destruction at large scale. Okay. Causing destruction at a large scale, not some doing something of small type. So, and another one student also said about that one nation attacking another nation. So that actually falls under the state sponsored hacks. Okay. State sponsored hacker. So state sponsored hackers are those types of hackers who are basically sponsored by the state. Okay. They are funded by the state, they are hired by the state. Okay. And they are guided and instructed by the state that okay, we want you to perform hacking on our behalf, give me this information, attack this another nation for this information. They generally try to leak some kind of sensitive military information, other intelligence. Okay. So actually the state sponsored hackers are like the most powerful hackers out of all. Okay.
Sir, can I ask something?
Yeah.
Sir, you said that the hacktivists also have an agenda, and you said that cyber terrorists also are motivated by some kind of religious agenda or anything else. So, like, aren't they? Isn't it the same,
No,
more or
hacktivists
less?
are not going to be covered under the religious agenda. Okay. Hacktivists are never going to be following some kind of a religious agenda. There can be some kind of a political motivation, but that is different. But religious agenda is only going to be followed by the cyber terrorists. Okay. So I was telling about the state sponsored hackers, and yeah, so state sponsored hackers are actually, you can say, like the most powerful hacker that exists out there. Why are we saying this thing, or why am I making this kind of statement?
Because they're paid to do unethical stuff.
Hmm? Sorry,
Backing by the government.
yeah, they are backed by the government first of all. What
So
else?
they won't be jailed for their any kind of unethical behavior or whatever.
Yeah. So actually, there is no repercussion to their activities. Okay, they do not care about it, and because they
Also,
are
they're getting paid.
Another thing is that they are getting paid. Okay, so they have got unrestricted access to money, unrestricted access to the resources. Everything is at their disposal, right? There are a lot of premium tools that are used for hacking. Okay, it's like if I give you an example of Burp itself. Okay, I believe Burp's Pro subscription is going to cost you around about the for basic one it is 2.5 lakh, and if you go for more user it is around about 7 lakh rupees. So for an individual hacker it is very difficult to invest that much of amount of money into a software. Okay, and that is the case with only one software. There are a lot of software that exists out there, but on the other hand the state sponsored guy does not care about it. He wants the professional tools, he will get the professional tools. Okay, so that is why state sponsored hackers are the most uh, dangerous one here, most professional ones, and the most powerful ones. Now actually why did I put a space between here is, at the end of the day all of these things fall under the types of hackers only. Okay, but we can say that uh, whatever lies below here kind of a threat actor. Okay, we can categorize these below types as a threat actor, and we can add a black hat into a threat actor category as well. Okay, right, so these people are considered as threat actors, right? And I believe threat actor, the term meaning is going to be clear to you. Any person who is going to cause threat to an organization, that is threat actor, right? Okay, let's proceed further.
Sir, is it true that a lot of black hat hackers were caught by the authorities later on as state-sponsored hackers?
Yeah, it is true. uh, at many instances we have seen it to be true, but still we cannot make a definite statement. Okay, it's like if you can give an example of Kevin Mitnick. Okay, initially he was the black hat guy. Okay, he was caught by the government. Okay, he was caught by the government, he served his sentence, and then later on government only hired him. Okay, nowadays he's owning his own security firm. Okay, so in most of the cases, see, whatever you do try to do it big. If you are a black hat hacker and you are trying to
Sir,
DDoS
actually, Kevin Mitnick wasn't a black hat hacker; he was a gray hat.
Kevin Mitnick.
Yes, sir. Sir, he never actually exploited any information or sold any information. He actually just hacked it and never used it. He just did it for the sake of it.
So people who hack into the system and never use it are categorized as gray hat hackers. Huh?
So he did not have any malicious intent. I mean,
Okay. So don't you think that malicious intention is very subjective in nature? How can you prove it? Hmm?
because he never actually used it to gain anything from it. He never gained anything out of it in terms of monetary benefits or anything. He never sold that information to any other firm or used it in any way.
Okay. Okay. So that is like, these are all the after theories that you can say. Okay. But if you are saying such things, you would have read about the activities of Kevin Mitnick, huh? What all he did.
Yes, sir. So all he did was very high level social engineering.
That's all, huh? So most of the time, social engineering is going to be the point of entry. But what happens next? That is also a cyber crime. Okay. So I hope you guys are aware of that. There are certain IT Act in India. There are cyber laws that exist and that defines computer hacking. Okay. If you gain unauthorized access, you are hacking into the system. Now the burden of proof lies upon you, that how you are going to prove that you did not have malicious intention and in 90% of the times you are not able to prove that you had your clear intention. Okay, there's an IT Act, you know. Hmm.
So IT Act 2000, 2008, Section 43.
IT Act 2000. Okay, maybe I'll try to include IT Act as well in this training. Yeah, so what was I telling? Where did we got diverted? The question was that black hat hackers are hired by the government as state sponsored hackers. Hmm?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so answering that question, yeah, sometimes it is, sometimes it is not. That is not mandatory that every black hat hacker is going to be hired by the state. Okay, not everyone is that lucky, I would say. Okay, Frank Abagnale, the guy who was caught for forging checks, yeah, impersonal, yeah. So, well, government banks are, yeah, enough. So, what are you trying to say? I'm not able to understand, huh? Frank Abagnale. I have also seen that movie, huh? What is that movie? Um, Catch Me If You Can. Hmm? Was just giving an example, right? Uh, that was the, yeah. So that happens actually, right? It happens. Sometimes it happens, but not every time it is going to happen. Okay. Okay. Coming back to our topic. So let's remove this thing. So now let's talk about malwares. Hmm. So we said, what is a malware? A malicious piece of software is malware. Hmm. A software that is going to harm a system, that is malware. Okay.
So any script of code can also be counted as a malware.
Yeah, right. A piece of code, a script, anything, a mobile application, web application, desktop application, a software, anything can be considered as a malware. Don't worry about that. Okay. Essentially, everything is just code, right? So, okay. So, can you give me any list of purposes why a malware would be created, or you can say the impact of malwares? Okay, why would someone try to use a malware? Mhm. Let's just type purpose here. Purpose of using a malware.
Spying.
Create bots.
Spying on someone.
Yeah, then ransomware.
Ransomware.
Like, so for money basically.
So ransomware is not a purpose. I can type extortion here. Hmm?
So gaining a remote access.
Right. So remote control, I can say here. Gaining remote control over target system.
Scaring, I guess.
Hmm? Scaring.
Scaring.
Scaring, right? This is what you are saying.
Yeah.
I can also write for fun. Just for fun.
No, so scaring can be different from fun. Like there's scarewares,
Okay,
dedicated
let me
scarewares.
just make it 2 points. Okay, now is it fine?
Yes.
Okay. What else? You guys are still missing a lot of purposes.
Modify or delete data.
So to create bots.
Modified data. 2.
So we this is terrorism. One of thing was an example. So
Yeah, Arnav, your voice is not clear. Can you please repeat?
causing scaring के बाद जैसे मतलब terrorism could be in also purpose.
Okay, terrorism could be a purpose. Okay, what else?
So
Very basic.
defaming.
Defaming. Defaming. How can you use a malware to defame someone? Huh? So the very basic ones you are missing is you can steal some information using malwares, right? It can be malwares can be used to steal, pilfer, redistribute some information, right? Spying, you have already said, to hijack the core computing functionality. Functionality of a system, to hijack into a system, to hijack the computing functionality of a system. Right? Much more, but if I need to provide specific examples of them, so like
Crypto mining. Crypto mining.
Crypto jacking is the technical term that is used to define those type of malwares which are basically used to mine cryptocurrency. Okay. So what is crypto jacking? Have you guys heard about crypto jacking?
Yes, sir.
What is crypto jacking?
Sir, like I just read it, the definition of it. So it basically said that the crypto jackals use your computing resources like the RPMs, the number of CPU cycles and all, in order to generate like mine their bitcoins and all. I didn't read the details, but that's what it said.
Okay, so anyone else would like to try? So crypto jackers are basically, it's like a malicious piece of code, a malicious script that is embedded in a website. Okay. So when a user is going to visit that website, and for whatever period of time the user is going to spend at that website, meanwhile, a malicious script is going to be executed on that system, on the user system, and it is going to start utilizing the user's CPU and the user processing power like CPU, RAM, and GPU, similar kind of stuff, for mining cryptocurrency. Okay, the cryptocurrency that is being mined, the user is not aware of. First of all, the user is not part of that thing. User is not paid even. Okay, that your power is being used. So there must be an appropriate compensation provided to that person as well. But that is not the case. Okay, so that is essentially crypto jacking. And generally what happens is the video streaming websites or the gaming websites, most of the times these websites are targeted with the crypto jackers. Why? Because it is believed that whenever a user is going to visit a video streaming website or a gaming website, it is going to spend at least half an hour to 1 hour. Okay, probably is going to stick to that website for a much longer period of time as compared to a general blog website. Okay, so those are your crypto jackers. So if I'm talking about crypto jacking and all that stuff, so let's talk about different types of malwares. Huh? What are the different types of malwares? Can you guys give me some options here? Different types.
So spyware, adware, ransomware.
Spyware, adware, ransomware.
Virus,
Rootkits.
Sir, bots or zombies?
Bots and zombies. Okay, let me just type bot here. Bots will be sufficient.
virus and worms.
Stealth viruses, like different types of.
Virus, worms, and what self viruses?
I said stealth viruses. So
Okay,
it comes under virus.
okay. What else?
Firmware rootkits.
Rootkit. Okay,
Man-in-the-middle attacks and
So Trojans,
Trojans,
remote access tools, rats.
rats. Okay, let me just type rat here. Okay,
So keyloggers, inbuilt keyloggers are sometimes there.
keyloggers. Okay,
So there is also something called scarewares which
scarewares.
pop up.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, but okay. Consider it is only if adware say. Okay. What else? Anything else that you guys can think of? So, what is a virus? Hmm? Let's start with a virus. How are you going to define a virus? Huh?
sort of malicious code or that is attached to an executable file generally.
Okay, that's all.
They are also user activated most of the times.
Okay. So viruses are basically, you can say, specific type of malwares. So first of all, they are going to need some kind of a carrier file. Okay, some other file to which they are going to be attached to. Another thing is that they need some kind of a human interaction to infect. Okay, to infect the target system. Another thing is that viruses are going to need some kind of a human interaction to propagate themselves. Okay, so the end line is that viruses do not have the ability to self-replicate and to self-propagate, and they always need some kind of a human interaction along with a carrier file. Okay, so if I say how viruses are spread, so viruses are generally spread through email attachments that you can think of, huh? USB drives, right? But let's say if I give you a virus in my pen drive, okay, there's a virus in my pen drive, or there's a virus in the attachment. Okay, you download the attachment. Okay, or you copy a file. That's all. Is it going to infect your system?
No, sir.
Why?
Unless and until we execute it or open it, it won't.
Okay, right. So that's another important point in virus, that along with the human interaction, the virus needs someone to double click on it. Okay, open it, execute it. Then only the infection is going to spread, or the infection is going to occur actually, not spread. Okay. If I have a virus, it is going to remain in a dormant position. Okay. Until unless I do not click on it, until unless I do not open it. That is virus. Okay. Then comes your,
Sir,
yeah.
hello, hello.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
So I have a doubt, as in you say that viruses are self-replicating in nature. Then how exactly are these viruses patched? As in these
Param,
viruses
your
are
voice is
patched on the
breaking.
base. Mhm. Hello, hello.
Param, your voice is breaking. I cannot hear you properly. Can you
Is
repeat?
it fine now? I mean,
So he's asking
am I
that
audible
if
now?
Yeah, you are audible now.
I'm asking, as in you say viruses are self-replicating in nature, then now how exactly are these viruses patched?
No, viruses are not self-replicating in nature. I did not say they are self-replicating in nature.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and viruses are not patched. Okay. We have antiviruses to tackle viruses, right? Antiviruses, anti-malwares that you use, right?
Every viruses have the digital signature associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, it is being patched by an antiviruses or so.
It is not patched. It is removed. You can say it is removed, or you can say it is quarantined, not patched. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Right. So, any doubt with that respect? Okay. So, then comes your worms. Okay. Worms. So, how are you going to define a worm? And how are you going to distinguish between a worm and a virus? You can say.
So worms only spread from machine to machine.
Okay. Worms only spread from machine to machine. What else?
so they generally slow down the networks if they're in a network,
They generally
and they can also run on their own.
they can.
Run on their own, like just a virus requires a host.
Mhm. To double click on it.
Yeah, worms can run on their own.
Yeah.
It self-replicates.
Right. So worms are basically, you can say, self-replicating viruses, okay, or self-propagating viruses, okay. Special type of malwares who have got the ability to create copies of itself, and probably at some point of time, maybe you would have faced this kind of virus or worm, like creating copies of itself in your system, huh? And it can propagate itself inside the network and outside the network as well, okay. It does not need user consent or user interaction to spread or propagate. Definitely, one person said that it is going to what it said, create congestion on the network. Yeah, that is right. Okay, so unduly it can increase the network traffic. That is also right. So actually, what happens is, can you guys give me an example of worm? Any example? Some well-known example of worm, huh?
So there was a worm a while back that is very famous, known as
Yeah.
red worm.
What was its
Code
name?
red worm. Code red worm. Something
Code
like
red.
that. Yes.
Okay. That's all.
It
No
had
specific.
infected like 300,000 servers
Mm-hmm.
under 19 or 20 hours or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Odroid is a bit older worm. I'm also going to give you an example of old worm only, but that not that old. So example of this is Stuxnet. Have you guys heard about Stuxnet?
So
Did not heard about Stuxnet? Tell me.
sir, सुने.
Hmm? So actually what happened was it was discovered in the year of 2010. Okay. Let me do one thing. So there's a very famous documentary upon it as well. Very good documentary, Stuxnet. Is this the one? 153.
There's at least some.
Yeah, this is the one. So I'm going to share this link. You guys can watch this one at your leisure. Very good story of Stuxnet. So what happened was it is being said, and although it is not yet confirmed exactly happened, but it's just a theory that probably USA and Israel collectively built this bomb, okay, and they targeted the Iran's nuclear reactors, okay. So Iran was able to set up its own nuclear reactors, and US was not in favor. US and Israel were not in favor of Iran becoming a nuclear power, okay. So if you go 20 years back, before the advent of internet, to stop certain this kind of activities, what are the methods that would have been utilized by these nations was either through the military activity or through the air force activity or through the naval, okay. But now with the advent of cyberspace, what they did was they built this worm, okay, which was designed for a specific purpose. That is, it is going to keep on spreading inside the Iran, okay, and it is not going to get activated until it is going to find the specific nuclear reactor, okay, the specific nuclear facilities. Once that worm find that facility.
Sir, wasn't it Flame Props virus?
Sorry?
Wasn't it Flame virus?
Flame virus?
Yes, sir. The Iran thing, nuclear thing.
No, it is Stuxnet. Okay. Here it is. Responsible for causing substantial damage to nuclear program of Iran. Maybe you are talking about something else. Okay. So yeah, but the end line is that the worm was built successfully, and the worm was spread successfully, and the worm was able to successfully bring down all the nuclear reactors in Iran. Okay, so it was successful in its function. More details upon this thing in this documentary that I have referred here. Okay, these are certain things that you guys need to be aware of. So talking about Stuxnet and all this stuff, let's talk about Edward Snowden as well. Okay, so how many guys have actually heard about Edward Snowden, this guy? Who is he?
Silver.
Whistleblower, I think.
Whistleblower. Yeah, it's written right here. Tell me something else, something more.
So he used to work for the CIA and NSA. So he got to know about the spying, the level of spying the US government was doing on its own people. So he tried to blow a whistle over that how your government is basically
spying on all the
Yeah.
citizens, not only in the United States, but even outside the United States. Okay. So actually, there are a bunch of very good documentaries upon it. Okay. Joey Rogan. No, I have not watched all of them, but I have watched this movie called Snowden. Okay. There's a movie inspired from this guy, Snowden movie. So you can at least watch this movie, have a look into it, see what it is all about. Okay. Now talking about movies and this thing.
So a lot of hacking tools designed by the NSA are still pretty active and dormant in a lot of our laptops and all that. I read
Mhm.
about something very similar. There are retro ultra high frequency reflectors and all that, which actually require very less power to function, and they can function with almost negligible power for about 8 to 10 years, and they can record all your sounds, activities, your activities on the monitors and everything. And there, some of them are also firmware rootkits. So these are still active in a lot of, especially Lenovo laptops. I read somewhere.
Yeah, so that is right. Okay, that is right. So it is very difficult for a normal user to inspect the hardware level configuration. Okay, you cannot just right away open your laptop and see what IC is there, what circuit, what it is basically doing. And actually, this is like uh, the latest trend of these agencies. Okay, if a user can format the device, do not play at the software level, play at the hardware level. Okay, just implement a firmware level rootkit, okay, or a hardware level rootkit, which is going to suffice. Okay, so okay, have you heard about Mr. Robot? Hmm?
Yes, sir.
You have watched it
So 2 3 seasons.
for 3 seasons? Okay, right. It is very difficult to cope up with 4 seasons, huh?
Kind of gets monotonous after a
Yeah.
while.
Right. So I myself have not watched the complete 4 seasons, but the point is that why I am mentioning this thing here is that comparing it with the other hacking movies or hacking shows in Hollywood or Bollywood, okay, Mr. Robot is something that portrays some realistic hacks, okay. Whatever has been done, whatever has been shown in the Mr. Robot show, those tricks and techniques can actually be utilized in real life. Okay, things are not that fictitious there. So it's good if you do not have the hacker mindset. Okay, and if you're totally new to the industry, it's good like you can watch this movie, Snowden movie, and you can start watching the Mr. Robot. Okay, so that you can build that aptitude. Okay, that mindset of a hacker. Right. Okay. Coming back to my point, let's talk about spywares. Huh? So, as the name itself signifies, spyware is something that is going to be used to spy upon the target. When I say spy upon the target, how are you going to elaborate that thing? How can you spy upon the person? Or what all things are going to be covered under the spying?
Like tracking their location, it may be, or like whomever they are talking to, the message histories, or it may be the browser history, or it may be
Mm-hmm.
everything, the activity which are recorded in their mobile device or computer.
Yeah, right. So, somebody else is also saying something. So spying is basically like monitoring the activity, the online activity or the offline activity, right? Like what is your internet history, what websites do you visit, what softwares do you use, what movies do you watch, okay, your online persona and similar kind of stuff. That is basically spyware, right? And if I say spyware, there is a specific subtype here, that is keylogger. Okay, so keylogger is like something that is going to spy upon the keystrokes that you are entering. Okay. So if the application is only spying upon the keystrokes, then it is going to be considered as a keylogger. Like whatever you are typing, you entered your email address somewhere, you typed your password at a website, those credentials are going to be saved by the keylogger. Have you guys ever used a keylogger? Ever used a keylogger? Nobody? No one tried using a keylogger, huh?
So installed it in one of the university computers. Someone installed it. I found it.
We have used it.
Installed in university computer.
Actually found one in one of them.
Okay, actually found one, right? So right, this is like general practice with keyloggers. Okay, what you do is you can go to the publicly used systems like library systems or any lab system or cyber cafe, all those systems that are used by public. Okay, more than one system, which is being shared by more than one person. Install a keylogger there and just sit back and relax and start fetching the passwords. Okay. So
Yes, sir. We do have an idea. We have used it. Spyrix, I guess we have used.
Spyrex, okay, great. So yeah, there are bunch of, not a bunch of, there are a whole lot of keyloggers that are available out there. Okay. So you can use any of them. They are generally utilized by, if I say for legitimate purposes, they are generally utilized by corporate professionals for user activity monitoring. Okay. And either or otherwise they are utilized by parents for monitoring the child's activity. Okay. Right. Okay. Any doubt? Anything that is not clear? Hmm? Tell me, and if anything is not clear. All clear? Hmm? Okay, it's good. If you guys are understanding everything, nice. If there is no doubt. So I hope you guys know the schedule, right? That you are also going to have sessions on Saturday, Sunday, right? Guys, are you aware of your schedules, huh? That you guys are going to have session on Saturday, Sunday as well?
Yes, sir. We are aware.
Yeah, and Thursday we are not going to have our session.
Friday also.
Friday also, sorry.
Yes, sir. Friday also. Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, what Thursday and Friday?
We are not going to have sessions on Thursday and Friday.
Okay. Okay.
And the timings for the weekend is also not confirmed yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm confirming that for weekend we are going to start by 3 p.m. Okay.
Sir, we have spoke to Mohit sir to make the changes of the timings in the morning section, like around 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, because many are facing problem with the timings which we have, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay.
So sir said he will make the arrangements accordingly. It may be start at 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning as such. And he didn't yet confirm, but this might be happen.
Okay, as of now, I have the information of 3 p.m. only. Okay, so we'll see. We'll try to confirm. Whatever is finalized, I'll let you know. Another thing is that the link that I have made, that is recurring link. Okay, you guys just need to click on that link, and our meeting is going to start. But that link you need to use for only the evening sessions that we are having. That starts by 6. Okay. For weekends, I'll create a new link. I'll share it to you on the weekend itself. Okay, guys. Okay.
Okay,
So,
sir. Cool.
okay, cool. Great.